Welcome to the third episode of How I Got into PT School. I'm very fortunate to be joined by James today, who's currently in a program right now. So he's even more recently gone through the process of what it was like getting into PT school. So I'm very excited to hear what kind of pieces of gold and types of information that were helpful for him to get into PT school. So James, how are you doing?
I'm doing all right.
How are classes going? I know it's really hard to pull your eyes away from lectures when you're in the middle of everything.
Yeah, so right now we're in the midst of finals. Man, it's going. I'll tell you that. Yeah. So,
I give you credit for taking time away from studying for finals because I know just that time is so like crunch heavy.
yeah, yeah. No worries, no worries.
Yeah. And additionally, I'm kind of curious, what is it like for you being a student right now with the whole pandemic thing? Can you give us like an idea of what your schedule looks like? Because obviously you're not on campus as much as you would want or normally be.
Oh yeah, for sure. Right now typically we have we go Tuesday through Friday. Tuesday and Thursday in the mornings we have 2 hours where we actually get to go on campus to work on manual skills. Other than that, maybe like 2 or 3 classes online, of course. Maybe an hour and 15 minutes each.
Okay.
So that's what we're doing.
Is it
Yeah.
is it a format kind of like this where it's a video, like they're using Zoom or something to teach the classes, or?
Yeah, so different formats. There's been Zoom, of course. Canvas has a format called BBB,
Mm.
and then as well as WebEx. Yeah.
Okay, so kind of bouncing around between all those, trying to navigate. Is it like
Exactly. Yeah.
teacher specific? Like one teacher prefers one, where another teacher prefers a different one?
Yeah, I would say so. I would say so. But now it seems like our our SMU Samuel Merit, they're kind of gearing towards Zoom. It looks like.
Okay, well that's
Yeah.
good to know. Prospective students, right, getting ready to apply to grad school. I'm sure the
Mhm.
COVID-19 restrictions aren't going to lift anytime soon. So this type of format might be something they can expect going into grad school. So
Oh
just to
yeah,
be aware of
yeah,
that.
for sure.
Yeah. So James, why don't you tell
Yeah. So
us?
like go.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. So like going in, I guess a reason why I was attracted to Sam and Mary was that it wasn't so much of a hybrid program, but then I guess now because of like you said, COVID and shelter in place, we
Kind
have
of.
to deal with or we have to make the best of it now.
Right, kind of has to be a hybrid. Well, at least you're still getting the manual skills in, right?
Exactly. Well, but yeah, yeah, that was real good. That's real good. I like it.
Yeah. So James, why don't you tell us a little bit about where you're from, where you grew up, what was your childhood experience? Where'd you come from?
Yeah, so I grew up mainly in the Bay Area, so North Bay, Vallejo, California.
Okay.
Um, Pretty much grew up there most of my life. Except the earlier years, I was born more in SoCal, like the desert area called Barstow, California.
Oh,
I don't know
interesting.
if you're driving, if you're ever driving through Vegas, it's like one of like the last stops to grab gas or
Oh,
something.
okay.
So yeah, so that's what it's known for. And I went to high school there, so I went to Vallejo High. Um, and then after Vallejo High, I decided to go to the local junior college, so Napa Valley College, for a couple years, and then which I eventually transferred out to, like you, Sac State, Stingers up. Yeah, and so I did my undergrad there in Kines, and then yeah, then SMU.
Yeah, right
Yeah.
on. So, when you were going to school, this is a question I ask everyone because,
Uh-huh.
and so far I've actually kind of fallen flat because everyone hasn't really done sports. But did you do sports in high school, growing up?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So growing up, predominantly played basketball. Um, but in high school, chose a different route, so I tried a whole bunch of sports. So let me see. I wrestled, played football, I did swimming
Wow.
and water polo.
Wow. So a lot of diversity in sports there.
Yeah, just trying a whole bunch of things, trying to see where where I can succeed the best, I guess.
Yeah,
Yeah,
kind of testing the different waters, so to say.
exactly, exactly. Yeah, 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 for sure,
Did
definitely.
Now did your experience with sports kind of that like give way into your PT experience? Did those two did they have anything to do with each other? Or did how did you basically get introduced to
Yeah.
physical therapy?
So, I mean, Yeah, sports was always a big part of I would say part of my life. But it wasn't. I guess not necessarily at first would I consider it the driving factor for me going into PT school, or like choosing to go through going through this route. Um, my cousin, she's actually a PT
Mm,
herself.
okay.
The older cousin. So I guess like growing up, and then she's being or interacting with her all throughout the years, and she kind of knows like the type of person I am. My interest is. So she kind of planted the seed a little early, maybe like high school, because I think that's where she finally graduated from PT school, like when I was around high school. So she planted the seed early, and I was like, yeah, I kind of want to do my own thing. I don't want to follow your footsteps and kind of be like overshadowed as I'm going through that process.
Right.
So like, I put that on the back burner, and then things didn't actually start clicking until my mother actually went through PT herself. And so like I would take her to visit sometimes and pick her up. So I was a little curious. I was like, okay, let me see what physical therapy is about. And then the way the PT was interacting with my mom, and I saw the firsthand the success, or what PT can actually do to individuals such as my mom, and get her back to like functioning the way she was prior to the injury. And I was like, wait, like
Yeah, there's something
this
to
might be
this.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's something to this. Like, yeah, I think I could see myself doing this. So I started researching more, and then towards maybe like my last semester or last year in junior college, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna give this a try. So that's when I started researching like what kind of avenues would I need to take to get to set myself up going to PT school. So that's when I decided to look into Sac State and
Right.
exercise science, that route. Yeah,
Yeah. And what year
sure.
was that? Around the time that you decided to kind of go that direction?
Let me see. Let me see. I graduated high school 2010. That was maybe like 2012, 2013, around there.
Around that time.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, that makes
Yeah.
sense. So it's really interesting. It sounds like rather than yourself having, an injury that resulted in you going to see a PT, it was
Hmm.
your mom, and then so you kind of got that firsthand experience with her going to PT and seeing what it was like.
Exactly. Yeah.
My
Yeah.
my experience was similar. It's like I was injured myself and I saw a PT, and then it's like, man, these guys are
Got it. Got
really
it.
really happy. I at the time I was
Hmm.
volunteering in
Hmm.
a fire department, and
Oh, nice. Okay.
all the volunteer firefighters, they're kind of miserable. They didn't really
Yeah.
like what they were doing. So I went and saw a PT, and I'm like,
Yeah.
this
Yeah. Yeah.
this person's like really stoked on life. I gotta figure out what they're doing. So that's
Got it. Got it. Yeah.
yeah.
For sure. For sure. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So now it's kind of funny that you say that you didn't want to be overshadowed by your cousin, who is already a physical therapist. Did she end up actually
Hmm.
being more of a mentor for you as you kind of went into you made the decision to go for PT? Did she end up being like a great like a guiding star, I guess?
Yeah. No. Yeah. For sure. I could say that. And even till this day, I'll still like reach out to her if if I find like myself having like a roadblock at PT school, like just asking tips here and there. Like, yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
great.
For sure.
It's one what I'm kind of taking away from this is it's really good to have someone who is already in the field as like a mentor. Um, in your
Hmm.
case, it was your
Yeah. Yeah.
cousin,
I agree.
so
I agree.
a lot of people, right? Like that's a really good piece of advice would be I'd say to go find someone who's in the field and just kind of shadow them, right? To see if they can kind of help
Exactly.
you through
No.
it.
Yeah.
Okay, so
I agree. I agree.
you've gone through sports. You've gone now. You're transitioning from junior college. You're going to Sac State. You're doing kinesiology. You're starting to take all your classes of kinesiology at Sac State. Let's kind of walk through, if you recall, what your so now it's like application season. What your GPA is, what your GRE score is. Do you recall what those numbers are?
So okay. Yeah. Yeah. For sure. Um. So after graduating Sac State around spring 2016, I knew certain prereqs I needed to retake, just
Right.
so I can bump up my stats just to be a little more competitive. So I retook a couple classes at DVC, so Diablo Valley College. Um, I think it was like physio. I did again, stats, um, and I took lifespan. I just saw it was like a prereq that I didn't have, as well as just a general bio class. So taking those classes, I'll say my cumulative was always on like the average end. I would say I think it was around 3.4, and then but I try to geared or kind of guided my selection of schools, you say, based on prereqs. So I knew my prereqs were strong. I think prior or like for SMU at least, it was maybe around 3.8 for prereqs. But my GRE, I mean, I struggled with the GRE. So
Right.
I took it a couple. I took it. I want to say I took it three times.
Oh wow.
I took it three times. Yeah, I took it three times. So like, I took it first time, was just like, let me just see where I'm at, kind of benchmark. And I was like, okay, well, I'm like almost there. So I like studied harder for the second time. But that second time, I was early. I was amped. I was ready. But I guess on my application, because it was weird. So on my application, I just put my first and last name.
Hmm.
But so when I gave them my driver's license, it had like my middle name and it had like I had like a second name because Filipinos was like James. So my full name is James Edward, but I never used Edward. I just
Oh,
put
I
James.
see.
And so
Okay.
when I got there, like, oh, I don't know if we can accept this.
Wow.
And I was like, are you? Yeah, I was like, are you serious? I was like, so I'm stressing. You know, like I was supposed to be scheduled at 8. It's already 8:30. They were like, can you just go home and get another ID? And then
Yikes.
I was like, I have my Costco card. It says James Abellar, and they're like, okay, we could try that. And then so the supervisor, whoever was in charge, like, okay, yeah, we'll let him in. And so I get there, so I'm already stressed. You know, this is already a stressful environment already with the
Yeah.
whole GRE.
Wow.
And then I sit down, my computer won't even start, and then I'll have to like wave somebody. So
Oh
like I
my
was
God.
all out of wax. So
Yeah.
it
What
wasn't.
a
So I had
horrendous start to a very important
it
test.
was it was very horrendous. So yeah, so that was a wash, and then I retook it the third time, and yeah, it was better. And I
Right.
think I scored. Well, it still wasn't like phenomenal, but it was like a 310, I believe. Yeah,
Okay, yeah. So, and the third time you came with your social security, your birth certificate,
yeah,
your blood
everything.
type, and.
Yeah, everything. I was prepared. I was like, there's not gonna be a fourth time.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that is just.
Yeah.
I mean, that's also a good piece of information to know, right? So, like, if you're getting ready to apply for PT school, knowing that those formal tests, they're very strict when you're getting let in. For example, I just went and took the MPTE recently, which is your licensing exam
Hmm.
for physical
Oh yeah,
therapy.
yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and when I was like handing them my
Did
license,
you get your results already?
I did. Yeah, I passed. So that's. Woo.
Oh,
Yeah.
nice. Congrats,
Yeah.
congrats. Yeah,
Thank you.
official,
Um,
official.
when I handed them my license, of course, like you have your signature on there, and I think when I took my license, I was like 15 and a half or 16, somewhere around there, and
Oh,
my
okay.
my
Yeah,
signature
yeah, yeah.
wasn't like a perfect match, and so they had to sit there for like 5 minutes and like look at my signatures to see if I was the same person. It's like, wow, this is like
Really?
stressful. Yeah.
So this is
So
for this is for the license exam?
this is for the licensing exam, yeah. So for
Oh,
anyone taking the GRE, just know that the people who like proctor the exam, it's very intense. So just with that
mm,
mentality, know that it's going to be a stressful situation going into it. So you're prepared
sure,
for it
yeah,
and
yeah.
not caught off guard. Um, yeah.
Exactly.
So okay. So you have your application. You've taken the GRE. You have both your prereqs, your GPA, and just your general GPA. So how many schools did you end up applying to once you had all those figured out?
Let me see. Sesame. I want to say five.
5 different schools.
5 schools. Yeah, 5 different schools. Yeah.
And then do you know?
So.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, you go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say or I was gonna ask how many of the five that you got in or that you applied to. Do you know how many you got into with those with your scores?
Yes. So I applied to 5 schools. So, well, I guess technically, yeah, it was five. I got into three of them,
Oh wow, wow. So that's
but the fourth, but the fourth one, I didn't really finish it all the way through. I think it was Loma Linda, and then they wanted me to do like a supplement application, and I was like, well, I already got into a couple more. I already got into 2 schools prior. I was like, I don't know if I want to do this, and then I knew SMU was my number one choice. So I was like, I'm just gonna like put my eggs in SMU and just to see what happens, and then yeah,
and here
then
you
it
are.
happened.
Yeah. So what do
Yeah,
you
and then
remember
here
the
I
five
am. Yeah,
schools
for
that you
sure.
applied to? So SMU, Loma Linda, and
Yeah, so SMU, Loma Linda, Sac State. So Sac State's the one I didn't get into. So Sac State, um, Toro out in Nevada, and St. Augustine and San Marcos.
Gotcha. Yeah, Sac State
Those
is
are the
a
top.
hard one to get
Yeah,
into just because of the price of the
it
program,
is.
right?
It is. Exactly. Yeah. That's
Yeah,
real competitive. Super competitive.
yeah. Um, so when you were looking up these schools, did you like when you were kind of deciding which ones to apply to? Where'd you go to get resources? Did you go online and just like search the schools individually, or did you go to like a forum, or did you hear from friends? Like how did you choose which ones?
Uh, yeah. So I guess a mixture of that. For sure, PT Cast. So I would use PT Cast, and then that was probably my biggest resource. 'Cause I know on there they had a whole bunch of schools, and then there was like a separate kind of layout where you can look up each school's like statistics on who got in the previous year. So I was using that a lot as kind of like a benchmark for myself, as well as the student PT forums. I use the student PT forums a lot, trying to see like who was getting into where, what were their stats like. So I was using that, and then a little bit of friends. Yeah, a little
Yeah.
bit.
Okay. So yeah. So you're kind of scouring the internet. You're using forums like the student PT forums. Did you do you use
Hmm.
like the student? I know there's the Student Doctor Network is a good resource. There's also there's a subreddit for PT students. Did you use any of those to kind of decide where you're going, or?
No, it might be student doctor forum, but maybe that was it, but not the Reddit one. I didn't even know there was a Reddit subforum.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Well, so in case you're wondering, there's other avenues too.
yeah, for sure.
Um, and then of course you ended up going to Samuel Merritt. So the Samuel Merritt offers something interesting, which is an info session, and I know a lot of schools are starting to
Hmm.
offer info sessions. Can you talk a little
Hmm.
bit about that and how you think it impacted your chance of getting in?
Yeah, I so I was kind of 50-50. Like, oh yeah, I knew there was info sessions for SMU, and then I think I knew a buddy or a coworker actually that she was going to, and she was like, "Oh no, you should go. I think they give you like a bonus thing if you go to the info session." And I was like, "Oh really?" I was like, "Okay, so I'll go." So I went. I mean, like I guess it to me, I felt like it was super beneficial because I knew I wanted to go to SMU because predominantly for the reason that it was local,
Right.
right? And yeah, I read like all the stuff on their website or on their homepage for PT. And I was like, okay, I can see myself going there. But when I actually went and then listened to like the faculty talk as well as our current students, I was like, oh, that's where it was like, yeah, this is a place I want to be. Sounds like it's a fit for me for sure.
Yeah, very, very good. So the takeaway from that is that if a school offers an info session, it's probably in your best interest to go because whether or not you get an interview, like that's an important. Of course, you should try your best, but at the interview. But if you get in with an info session, that's another chance for the faculty to put a face to a name on the application,
Hmm.
right? Um,
Exactly.
so in your best interest as a student applying to certainly go to these sessions and take
Yeah,
advantage of
yeah.
that. Um, so you ended up getting into Samuel Merritt. And that's I'm sure that's like such a huge load off your
Like
shoulders.
yeah, oh
Yeah,
yeah, for
once you
sure.
once you finally get in.
Yeah,
Do you know
yeah.
what your because certain schools have like different hour requirements for both shadowing
Oh,
inpatient outpatient. Do you
yeah.
recall like what your total was and then how many you had in each area?
So I don't recall what SMU specifically wanted, but for me, I because I worked as I think right after I graduated from Sac State, so like I said, spring 2016. Literally the week after I started working as an aide
Okay.
at a clinic out in Benicia, California. So I was there. I want to so from 2016 to 2019, when I started. So for 3 years I worked as an aide. So I was
Oh,
just
you had like
accumulating hours,
an insane amount of hours then, I'm
ton of
sure.
hours. Yeah, insane. Yeah, maybe like I don't know, there was a lot of hours. Yeah. Uh, And then so I did that. And I got some volunteer experience for inpatient because I know that was required. So you need outpatient as well as inpatient hours. So inpatient hours wasn't too much. Maybe it was less because that was strictly volunteering. But I want to say maybe from no, I already got in. But also I am currently still working as a a rehab aide for UCSF too, inpatient.
Oh
So
wow. Okay, yeah. So
acute
you
care.
you never
Yeah.
stopped. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, only so I'm only work. So I'm a it's like a special thing or like it's per diem. So I'm only working twice a month right now.
Okay.
So it's just something to kind of keep my feet in the foot in the door, as you could say. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I'm sure
Yeah.
they're very excited to have you graduate and get you there as like a full time.
Yeah, we'll see if I decide to go that acute care route.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. So you're at Sac State. You got all your prereqs. You've applied. What kind of did you do any like extracurricular activities? Like for example, I know Sac State has like a PT club or a pre-PT
Mm-hmm.
club.
Mm-hmm.
Did you do anything like that? Were you part of like any organizations? Do you think any of which that were like beneficial for your application?
Actually, bringing up that I was in the pre PT club at Sac State.
There you go.
So, yeah, I think towards the later, towards I think my last 2 semesters, I was actually the secretary.
Oh wow. Okay. Yeah.
So yeah.
So you had a very
Mm-hmm.
important position within a club specific for PT.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Exactly. Yeah.
that's awesome. And did
So
you
like,
use so like part of your application you have to write a lot of essays? Did you kind of pull from that experience at all, and try to implement that into your college essays or your grad school essays?
um, with that, no, not so much. I mean, I would mention it, but I wouldn't say that it was uh, like a highlight of my essays. I would say
Okay.
it was more just kind of like say, oh, I did this, and here was my role, but not too in depth. Yeah,
Right. So not necessarily relying on it, but simply mentioning it as like a like an asset of your skills that you've probably accumulated through these experiences.
exactly.
Um,
Yeah, yeah.
Interesting. Did you have like any other type of clubs or like extracurriculars that you used as part of your application that you think helped?
Let me see. So not Sac State predominantly, but I did. I was in the Mesa club for Napa, so it was like mathematics, engineering, science club or program, and so there I mean again I still use it as an asset, not necessarily more of like talking about it. Yeah, I
Right.
would say.
This might be school specific, so I'm not sure if this question will float. But do you kind of recall the angle that you took for a lot of your applications, like for the essay portion? Like for example, the angle that I took on a lot of my application that I was writing was like
Mm.
perseverance, right? Like here's all these obstacles that I've
Mm.
overcome in life through perseverance, trying to highlight the fact that I would be a good candidate for school because of my persistence. So do you kind of remember the angle that you took for a lot of your essays when you were writing?
Yeah, actually, similar angle.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah, yeah, similar angle. Yeah, yeah. So I mean, I think I know schools. Yeah, for the most part, that was the angle. I know it's just like very school specific essays out there. But yeah, for the most part, that was the angle, and just saying like I know a lot of it was I really showcase humility
Mm,
through my essays. So say I was like I was never that 4.0 student. I was never that like overly talented athlete, but I always highlighted like I was well rounded, and then like as I always showed like you were saying like being able to overcome certain things, and that I kept pushing regardless of what was in front of me, and it never deterred me from this goal or this route of getting into PT school.
right.
I don't know
Yeah. So the
if that makes sense
circumstances
to you.
didn't define you, right? In this.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Speaking to that, did you was the first time you applied for PT school the first time you got in, or did you apply each year?
Oh, so so this I guess technically was my second round, but the first round I only applied to one school.
Oh, okay. So did you use
I
that
was
as an
more.
angle of like perseverance in your essays, or
I did. I
yeah?
actually did. Yeah, I actually did. So because I knew based on my stats, I wanted to improve. Like I still had room to improve. Like still take a class or two. But I was like, you know what? I just want to see if I can like maybe like, score an interview and then based on that interview, see if I can take my chances. And then I did. It was at I actually just applied to Western, and I did get an interview, and then I was waitlisted, but I was never taken off the waitlist the first time around.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So got pretty far then. The wait list, a lot of people, if you get on that wait list, it's almost a guarantee. So that's pretty good for the first time applying. And then using, of course, that information to better yourself for your next round of applications is always,
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it kind of encapsulating your whole undergraduate high school experience. You've collected
Mhm.
all these different things that you've done. You're working really hard, and of course it pays off. But would you go back and change anything? For a prospective student who's applying to a program right now, they're listening to this and thinking, well, what can I do to like optimize my chances of getting in? So is there anything about what you did that you'd probably go back and say, oh, I would have done
Oh
this
yeah.
differently?
Oh yeah, for sure. So during my time at the junior college, so I was taking a so like the I was taking the biology route right out of high school.
Hmm.
So like loading myself with all these science classes, like all these like calc, like higher level math classes that now I didn't even necessarily need
Right.
in order to get into PT school. So if I would say if I knew earlier that like, oh yeah, so I want to go into PT school, did my research early, maybe like end of high school, early first year of junior college, something like that, so I can see the classes that I need to do well in.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, you need to do well in a lot of your classes because they are looking for cumulative GPAs. But if I had a better focus, then I probably would have chose my classes a little better and not stack like 20 units right away and knowing like, oh man, if I and then not really. So I wasn't really like aware that if I didn't get a certain grade, it wasn't going to affect me down the road because obviously it did because I had to retake some prereqs right after graduating from Sac State. So that kind of took some time away where I could have maybe potentially just applied right after undergrad versus
Right.
taking 2 years off. Yeah.
Yeah, that's such a powerful message too, because I feel like a lot of my classmates were in the same boat. They went to junior college, and then they weren't necessarily sure what they were going to do. And had they had just a little more focus, they
Mm-hmm.
probably could have optimized their trajectory through college.
For
So
sure.
I think a way to, an actionable item from what James is saying is possibly looking at the different colleges that you'd want to apply to for PT school and taking, okay, well, they need the they need general chemistry, and you need physics, and you need this level of math, you need bio, so that there's certain core classes that are going to be the same across all the programs, and maybe gearing what you're saying, gearing your schedule to go directly for those rather than just taking the extra stuff.
Exactly. No,
Yeah.
exactly. You got it. Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah. So currently you're in school.
Mm-hmm.
So you've made it through. You've made it through
Uh-huh.
the other side. It's funny. When I was at Sac State, there was a common saying that was going around that it was getting into grad school is the hardest part.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, yeah. I remember that saying. Yeah, I
Yeah.
remember that.
Would you? What are your thoughts on it now that you're in grad school and you're doing the classes? Do you think that still feels the same?
Yeah, so I mean it's different when you're in the when you're in it trying to get into PT school. Maybe I don't know. I use the word I was desperate. I was like hungry. I was trying to get in, like doing everything I can to just get in, and then I, like for SMU, once I got in, man, I tell you that first semester of like full didactic. Oh man, it hit me hard. Yeah,
Yeah, it's a
I was
tough.
like, it's like so. I told myself, you worked so hard, you wanted this, and you're in
Yeah.
it, but you just gotta, you wanted this, you just gotta push through now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so good. That's a
So
good. I think it's good for people to hear, right? Like, it's insanely hard, right, to get into PT school, but boy, it doesn't stop once you get into PT school. So just keep that on your radar.
exactly, no, no, yeah,
um,
for sure, for sure.
so going into PT school, did you have like a certain like a specialty that you wanted to do? And has that changed after you've kind of now had more experience being inside and exposed to more clinics and
Yeah, I mean, again with like the sports background, I mean, I know I know it's probably common, but I want maybe like somewhere in the sports med
Hmm.
realm. I was looking into that, but as well as working in inpatient and then just getting a little like, prior to PT school, I mean, getting a little more exposure. I was interested in neuro as well. So so I don't think my it's still around there, neuro and sports med. But one thing is, we are going off on our first clinical rotation in a couple weeks, and it's outpatient ortho or it's orthopedics. So we'll see. Maybe after this experience, I may deter and be like, maybe outpatient ortho's not for me, or maybe I'll let you know what, it confirms that yeah, this is for me. So there's still a lot of room to play there. I think yeah.
Yeah, that's good to keep on the radar because I think a lot of people come in exactly what you're saying. Like, I'm gonna be a sports guy. Like, I'm gonna work with sports and
Mm-hmm.
athletes, and that has like, that's a great population to work with because they're really highly motivated and of course they want to get back to playing their sports. But then you can see
Exactly. Yeah.
a lot of people change their mind. Like I was the same way. I wanted to do sports, working with like
Mm-hmm.
sports med, but I am an acute rehab guy now. I like working with patients
Nice.
in acute rehab. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it can change. So I'm curious to see. I'll check in with you in a couple of years and see has it
Oh yeah, for sure.
flipped or
Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
um, so you're kind of a student. So I know you got your blinders on and you're really just focused on what you're doing. So this question might be like in the grand scheme of things a little out of place, but where do you
Mhm.
see now you're getting more experience, a lot of exposure to the field. You're meeting with a lot of different professionals in different capacities. Where do you see like the field of PT going in the next 10 years?
Mm. So yeah, for the next 10 years, I think I believe that PT will still continue to grow, and I see this profession as being like we hinted to like perseverance. I feel like this profession is gonna persevere, especially like right now with the whole shelter in place. Like I was thinking to myself, like I wonder what like what can PTs do now, right? It's our profession is more like that interaction, one on one, close contact with patients. But now seeing that, prior going into before COVID or before shelter in place, I wasn't even too familiar with telehealth. I didn't even know. I knew telehealth was like for doctors or nurses. I didn't know PTs were actually entrenched in that as well. So seeing that PTs are still able to, or the profession is able to adapt to whatever circumstances is thrown out there or in the world, I feel like the trajectory is just gonna keep going up. So
Yeah.
via if it's telehealth or any different other avenues, if there's maybe apps, I feel like the field in general will find its way to adapt to the ever changing world out there.
Yeah.
I feel mhm.
Yeah, it's interesting. I agree. I mean, it seems like telehealth is obviously with the current times a very prominent thing that a lot of people, healthcare providers are discussing, right, using.
Mhm.
Of course, it was always on the radar. I think for physical therapists, I think I can't recall off the top of my head. I think there's like 8 states out of the 50 that have it as like a reimbursable through insurance. I don't think California is one
Oh,
of them.
okay.
Don't
Okay.
quote me on
Yeah.
that, but there is a number out there that shows you which states um, are currently using telehealth for physical therapists, which is great for rural communities, and especially great now considering that a lot of patients are having to stay home for various reasons. But yeah, I agree. Telehealth is certainly an area of um, interest for a lot of different healthcare professionals right now.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Um, all right. So, in terms of, you know, you being the student that made it through the other side, is there any advice that you'd give to a student who's, either at the undergrad level, they're perhaps graduating a college and they're thinking about applying? Is there any advice you'd give them about what it was like getting into PT school or anything you wish you would have known?
Yeah. So I guess going. So I remember pretty, pretty well that it was during orientation going to Sac State. I would sit there. I forget the professor, but the first thing she was like, "Well, if you I know there's a bunch of you in here who probably want to go out and do PT. Well, not all of you are going to be able to get in. Like, if you don't have certain grades, yeah, well, you need to look in the mirror and maybe find a different avenue." And I was like, whoa, what the? I was like, so, so I guess going based on that, yeah, if you guys really think PT is for you and you're really passionate about it, you'll there are avenues and there's ways to kind of make things happen. So take use me as an example. I didn't have stellar stats coming out of undergrad. I knew I had deficits there, but I worked. So you can so grades you can make grades not necessarily be the highlight of your application. It could just make sure like you're well rounded. Accumulate so many hours, all this experience, and then like I said, there are chances to like retake certain prereqs. So if it happens, right? I mean, early on undergrad, we're partying. I mean, a lot of people are partying and not taking school the most serious, I guess you could say, the first couple of years. But don't let that deter you because you can retake some of these classes and just show that you're well rounded. And then when you get to that interview, if you guys do get that, hopefully you guys get that interview, you can showcase things that may won't necessarily be seen in your application, and so that'll give you guys an edge too.
Yeah, such a good message, right? Just persevere, keep going, keep pushing. I really like that you told that story because I tell everyone that story because I was also at Sac State and
Yeah.
I came from a junior college as well where I had everyone there was like super supportive. The counselors were like, this is what you can do, just like work hard, keep working at it, and you'll get there eventually.
Mm-hmm.
Just keep working. And then you get to Sac State and it was orientation and you're sitting in this room with like 200 or 300 people. They're all kinesiology majors and the professor is standing at the very front of the room, and he's like, "Raise your hand if you want to be a PT." And the entire auditorium just raises their hands, and he's like, "All right, now look around the room. 10 of you are probably gonna get in. I need everyone else to figure out something different." And so,
Yeah,
what a heartbreaker.
it is. I was like, oh man.
Yeah, and I remember thinking, I'm like, I'm gonna be one of those 10. So, and
Oh yeah, yeah,
I
for
remember
sure.
thinking as soon as you said that, I'm like, you're wrong. I'm getting in, right? So,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
of course, here I
for
am.
sure.
So
Yeah,
I'm really glad you told that story because I tell that to
yeah,
people all the
yeah,
time.
yeah, yeah.
All right,
Yeah,
James. Well,
for
thank you
sure.
so much for taking the time out of your schedule. I know it's
Yeah, no worries.
finals week.
It is. It
So,
is. Yeah.
I really appreciate you sitting here and letting everyone know about what your experience was like. I know it's really hard to pull your eyes away from the paper when it's crunch time. So, your time is very
Yeah.
much appreciated.
Yeah. Yeah. No worries. No worries, Jeremy.
Alrighty, man.
Well, I appreciate it. Yeah, it was good. It was a good time.
Yeah. All right. Hey, you take care now. Okay. Good luck on your finals.